Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and to another video in the monthly favorite series where every month I talk about some of the interesting / cool / maybe interesting things I've discovered that month. Today we're going to be talking about a physical product, a book, a podcast, and a blog post. And as usual, timestamps for all those are going to be linked in the video description and in a pinned comment, so feel free to skip around if you feel like it. But now, let's just get started. The first thing I want to talk about is this Leuchtturm 1917 A5 shaped notebook. And yeah, it's a physical notebook, and I never thought I'd be a fan of physical notebooks, but I've actually really enjoyed writing in it, and I've got the dotted version. I started this on the 24th of May, 2019, so in the last kind of 5 weeks, four and a bit weeks, I've filled 80 pages of it already, and I found that like if I just have this sitting there kind of with my iPad in front of me, or even without my iPad, like I went to a coffee shop once just having my cheeky latte and this book in front of me, and just with a little pen and just like free writing, I've actually come up with lots of kind of insights and ideas for new things I can do with my website and new things I can do with this YouTube channel. Just having like, you know, free pages to just write whatever and like draw arrows and do diagrams and stuff has just actually been really, really helpful. And I think partly there is the fact that I feel like a bit more of a badass, because I mean everyone uses tech these days, but there's something romantic and nice about getting out your physical notebook, getting out your pen, sitting in a coffee shop, sipping your latte like a pretentious twat, and just kind of writing stuff in your physical notebook. Plus, it's also such a delight to write in this thing that it actually encourages me to do more writing. Like, it's quite nice writing with the iPad Pro and an Apple Pencil, but at this point, because I've been doing it for like the last 2 years, it just feels very normal. Like, that is the sort of writing that I am now used to as a default. So when I get my pen out and write in this Leuchtturm 1917 notebook, it feels like a different sort of experience. And I think that novelty so far hasn't yet worn out, even though it's been 5 weeks, and I hope it won't wear out because it's like genuinely nice to write in this. So yeah, recommend one of these. I'll stick an Amazon affiliate link in the description below if you fancy letting me make 1% commission on the sale price of this. I think I got this for like £15 or something. It seemed a bit expensive for a notebook, but this Leuchtturm 17 apparently are the ones that Neil Gaiman uses, and he knows what he's doing. Secondly, I want to talk about a book, this book, but before I do, I talked about this book in last month's video. Congratulations to The Real Jason KO, who says, an aspiring physician from Canada here. Thanks for the inspiring videos. You're welcome. Would love to receive a copy of the book. Okay, The Real Jason Co. This book is yours. I'll write a little message for you. If you message me on Instagram or send me an email, actually, yeah, send me an email and like in the subject line, tell me that you're the winner of this book and include your address, and I will mail out a copy of this book to you. That said, let's talk about this month's book, and that is Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. Now, I never really thought I'd be one for nonfiction. I think I said this last month when I talked about Bad Blood and how like incredible it was, and how surprised I was that this was like an actually good nonfiction, non-self-help, non-businessy kind of book. So I was really surprised by that, and then I thought, you know what, I'm gonna give other nonfiction books a try. Why don't I read an autobiography? And around the same time, someone recommended this book, Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. Phil Knight, the founder of Nike. A memoir by the creator of Nike. Warren Buffett apparently said, the best book I read last year, Phil is a gifted storyteller. And I have to agree with this. This is actually really, really good. It's not like a standard business book, which is full of like advice and stuff. It's just kind of the story of how Nike as the brand started, and how this guy Phil's, his love of running made him, and he had a coach who really cared about running shoes, and then Phil thought he could go to Japan and manufacture a certain type of shoe called Tigers, and how they made this company called Blue Apron. No, it's not Blue Apron. I can't remember what it's called. But eventually that led to Nike, the brand, and it's just such a firstly a well-written book. Like, it really makes you want to turn the page. It really kept me hooked and entertained, and the way he talks about his story is not at all braggy. It's a very inspiring memoir of how much hard work and how much kind of grind goes into building something like Nike. And there's a lot of interesting kind of insights along the way about the athlete deals that he's done. And like the ending of this is actually really good. So I won't spoil it, but I was actually properly in tears. Like, I never thought I'd cry at the end of like a non-fiction book, but like I was like genuinely crying at the ending. And the epilogue is particularly powerful, where he talks about what it's like to be rich. And I always think that's a very interesting thing to hear people talk about, because it's an aspect of the human experience that we all, to some extent or another, we all want to be rich. And so getting an insight into what it's actually like to be rich from one of the world's richest men is very, very interesting. He also talks about the Nike sweatshop scandal and how that kind of evolved and spread throughout their company like 10 years ago, I think this was. But it's just overall like really, really good. Oh, Quote from Bill Gates, a refreshingly honest reminder of what the path to business success really looks like. It's an amazing tale. Yeah, 100% agree with that. It really is an amazing tale. I'm always feeling emotional talking about this because I actually love this so much. And I bought it for a friend and started gifting this to people because it's just really, really, really good. Thirdly, I want to talk about a podcast that I recently discovered and really enjoyed, and that is called Deviate by Rolf Potts. Now, Rolf Potts is an author, and in 2002, like ages ago, he wrote a book called Vagabonding, which is all about the uncommon guide to long-term world travel. And in this book, he talks about his journey of traveling the world and kind of shows that actually this dream of world travel is not as ridiculous and not as expensive and not as difficult as people just by default would make it out to be. So I read Vagabonding several years ago and I really enjoyed it, but at the time I was in university, and so this idea of, for example, like long-term world travel wasn't really on the cards. But now that in about a year's time I'm going to be free from the shackles of full-time employment and then I can kind of do whatever I want, I really like the idea of doing like a long-term world travel trip alongside doing some medical stuff in various different countries. So anyway, in this podcast, Deviate, Rolf Potts, the author of this book, Vagabonding, interviews lots of people. And this is just a standard kind of podcast where you get long-form conversations. But the episodes that I particularly enjoyed are the ones where he's interviewing other people who are really into this travel thing. So he did one episode where he interviewed some guy who travels around the world with absolutely nothing, like apart from like his passport in his pocket and like his wallet. He doesn't carry a bag or anything like that. He interviewed some woman who travels the world just with one backpack. He's interviewed lots of like travel journalists, travel writers, travel photographers. And it's so inspiring. Like it really gave me the bug for travel. And ever since I started listening to this, I started actually trying to make concrete plans for my hopefully semi-long-term world travel-y thing. And listening to this podcast, it seems a lot less daunting than it once did to me. So if you're into this sort of travel-y thing, then Deviate by Rolf Potts would highly recommend. It's not just about travel, they also go off topic, and it's always very interesting, especially hearing people who have done these cool things with their lives, then talking about any old topic. It's just going to be interesting. So yeah, have a listen to it if you haven't heard it already. Deviate by Rolf Potts. Finally, I want to talk about a blog post, and this is a blog post that was written on a blog called Get Rich Slowly. Bit of a crap name, but it's actually one of my favorite personal finance blogs, and there's a ton of really, really good advice on Get Rich Slowly about how to build your wealth, about things like saving, things like investing, and of breaking these common myths about how investing is so hard and such a big deal, and talking about kind of low cost, low effort ways to go about it. But the blog post that I want to talk about is called The Psychology of Passive Barriers. And it's actually a guest post. So it was written by someone else on the blog. And the person it was written by, that I only found out like right at the end after I read this, because I didn't realize, is a guy called Ramit Sethi, something like that. And Ramit Sethi is quite famous amongst the personal finance community because he wrote a book called I Will Teach You to Be Rich, which is also a really, really, really terrible, like clickbaity, spammy sounding title, but it's actually a really, really, really good book. Kind of like Tim Ferriss's The 4-Hour Workweek. It sounds like an absolutely terrible title, but the content in it is really good. Anyway, so Ramit Sethi, this is a guest blog post on Get Rich Slowly, back from like 2009. Anyway, after all this background that probably no one really cares about, I'll link it in the description below, obviously, and you should read it. And the whole blog post is basically about this idea of passive barriers, an idea that I like to refer to as friction. It's not an original idea by any means. Lots of people have come up with it. Basically, the idea that often it's not anything particularly big or insurmountable that stops us from achieving our goals or from getting good habits or doing the things that we want to do. Often it's just the passive barriers that are in place. So it argues for, when it comes to the realm of personal finance, it's about reducing these barriers. Like he talks about a story of some guy that he knew who had a check for like $3,000 and just never got around to cashing it. And a few months later, the company who sent in the check went bankrupt. So he essentially lost $3,000. And then you asked him, okay, like, why didn't you cash the check? He was like, oh, right, I just didn't have an envelope on me. And it's just like such a pointless passive barrier that caused him to lose £3,000. Equally, there's loads of other stories in this blog post, and I found myself reflecting on my own life about all the various passive barriers that happen to be there in my own life that stop me from doing the things that I want to do. And I kind of discovered this when I started making these YouTube videos, and the process of setting up all this equipment, we've got a microphone there, a massive light there, a camera, a screen, like the process of setting this up, at the start, it took so long that this was like a big passive barrier to me actually, sitting down and filming a video. Whereas I realized that if I can streamline this process, if I can reduce the friction, then it makes it a lot easier and more pleasant for me to sit down and churn out a video, and that just has good things in general. Also, you know, there's things in, for example, in Atomic Habits by James Clear, he talks about how if we want to build good habits, we should make those habits obvious. So for example, if you want to floss, you know, that teeth thing, then you would stick your floss in front of the counter in your bathroom rather than inside the cabinet. If you want to stop playing PlayStation so often, all you have to do is just put the PlayStation away in its cupboard such that it becomes a barrier, a passive barrier. It becomes some sort of friction that you have to overcome in order to then take it out again. So this blog post, The Psychology of Passive Barriers, kind of breaks this down in a lot better detail than I'm currently doing, and it just explores it really nicely. And it was probably the main blog post that really resonated with me in the month of June when I read it. So yeah, I'll stop talking. I'll link all the stuff in the video description. You should get this notebook. Really like it. It's good vibes. If you like notebooks, Amazon affiliate link in the description below. You should get Shoe Dog. Really bloody good book. Also, I'm gonna give this away. So if you want the book and you've gotten this far in the video after all my rambling, then please comment anything down below and put your Instagram username thing. But also, yeah, like quick thing here. Can you start your comment with like some kind of emoji? Because then I'll know that you've actually watched to the end of this video, and I will pick comments that have emojis on them. Because I'm curious, like the YouTube retention graphs show that only about like 10-15% of people watch to the end of my videos. So if you're one of those people, then thank you very much. Stick an emoji and your Instagram username, and I will message one lucky winner and ask for your address on Instagram. And you can get this copy of this book with a little message written in the front from me. So yeah, that's it for this month's monthly favorites. Thank you very much for watching. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't seen my other monthly favorites videos and you sort of like the format of this, I will put a playlist over there that has all of my monthly favorites on them. So you can just pick any of them. I usually talk about a book, a blog post, a podcast, and a physical product. So if you like this format, you might like those. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.